Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. I'm Lizette from Ferraris Law, and with me is Christine Ferraris, Consumer Protection Attorney here in Arizona. And today we're talking about something many people overlook: the hidden legal risks that tenants and homeowners often face. Whether you're renting your first apartment or buying a dream home, there are legal traps that could cost you time, money, and peace of mind. Let's break it down. Christine, here's a scenario. I signed a lease without reading every word. Could there be hidden clauses that might hurt me later?
Lizette, that is a really good question about leases, because nobody, including myself, wants to read a bunch of paperwork, but sometimes we have to. So I'm going to pick just the top three I would kind of focus on when you're looking at leases, whether they be commercial or even residential. Look at who is responsible for repair and maintenance. Essentially, who is responsible for fixing what? Some leases make tenants responsible for all the repairs, even major ones. And that's usually with the commercial leases. So it's really important that the resident knows, like, do they need to keep the sidewalk in front of, if they're renting an apartment or lease or whatever, clean from snow and debris? Who's responsible for caring for the yard? If there's a repair problem, probably notifying the landlord. Second important clause are the renewal and termination clauses. Check how much notice you must give at the end to renew your lease. And what are the penalties if you have to terminate the lease. There are some statutes, like domestic violence type of statutes and stuff, that allow someone to breach a lease because of safety and security. And then if the landlord or tenant isn't following the lease, that usually allows one or the other to terminate. It won't say that expressly, but it might. It usually says something about following the landlord-tenant statute, for whatever jurisdiction they're in. But it's something you should know so that you do follow that and understand it and ask questions before you sign. Last is the use and modification restrictions. Many of the leases limit how you can use the property or make changes to it, like if you want to paint a wall or something. So look to see what that looks like, have a discussion before, and make sure, whatever has been verbally represented is in the lease, right? And I would say that with any provision in the lease, anything that's important to you, make sure it is in the lease and not just rely on the representation of the representative that provided the lease and is answering questions.
Another question I have is, what if I'm struggling with mortgage payments? Someone contacted me and offered to stop foreclosure for a fee. Is that real or a scam?
Lizette, with respect to the question about foreclosure assistance, generally speaking, legitimate foreclosure relief companies that are HUD, then that's that housing house. I just feel so used to saying HUD, but House and Urban Development Agency, it's a federal agency, approves housing counselors, and they never charge upfront fees. You pay only after they successfully negotiated with the lender. So if someone demands payments before any results, that should be a red flag. And also look for warning signs in their behavior and their claims. Scammers often tell you to stop communicating with your lender or pay them instead. This is both suspicious and unlawful. Beware of guarantees that will stop your foreclosure. No one can guarantee that. And check to see if they're HUD approved and are recommended by nonprofit housing counselors. That's another good way to verify whether they're legitimate or not. And ask if they have a licensed attorney on staff, with the agency. And then you can verify that, by looking up somebody's registration with the state bar and to see that the attorney is actually somebody licensed in that state. Some other steps that consumers have concerns about foreclosure is to contact the lender directly just to see if they're willing to work out repayment options and modifications. And like I said before, reaching out to an HUD approved housing counselor, they'll usually provide free and reliable guidance and won't charge upfront. And if you do come across someone that is a scammer, people should make reports to the CFPB and the FTC and the Attorney General in the state that they're in, and even the Better Business Bureau. So that others are warned of that, and that's a good place to go to verify if the company you're not, if there's other people have complained about them. Thanks for the great question.
Another question I have is it okay if I always just call my landlord when something breaks, or should I just try and fix it myself and ask that it gets deducted from my rent, what I fixed? Can I just ask my landlord, listen, so I fixed this, but can we deduct it from my rent this month?
Another great question, Lizette. Thank you. Whether or not you should call your landlord when something breaks to ask to fix it, or just fix it yourself and deduct it for your rent, or ask to do that. Before you do anything, it is a good idea to call or notify your landlord. It usually says in the lease how you're supposed to notify the landlord. And it's better to do it in writing so that it's documented, and so everybody remembers. It's not so much it's like a legal issue and so forth, but it's just something that you remember what you said, and you included everything in there, and then you have a record of it, just because sometimes when we leave a message or a call, people don't always remember what was said. Leases and state laws, they often require you to give the landlord a chance to repair the issue before you take any action. Fixing something yourself and deducting from rent is only allowed in certain situations and states. And there are often really strict rules about notice, the repair amounts, and the documentation that needs to be involved. If your landlord doesn't respond after getting proper notice, whatever that is according to the lease or whatever you've agreed upon, hopefully in writing, some state laws allow tenants to make necessary repairs and deduct a reasonable cost, but only for usually essentials like heating, plumbing, or safety issues. So before doing this, check your lease and local tenant laws, or speak with a lawyer to avoid, violating the lease, and to really understand if it's a bigger issue. But most, responsible landlords will work with tenants and like it when tenants are proactive about taking care of things. But give them the opportunity to be able to fix it is my general, guidance. Thanks again.
And the last question. Should a consumer be worried if they didn't do a title search when they bought their home?
Title searches, are they necessary? They're usually critical because title searches are, looking at a professional who actually does this, examines the public records to confirm who actually owns that property, number one, and that there is no legal issues attached to the property, like somebody has a lien against the house, maybe the house is subject to a lawsuit, and other things like unpaid taxes or disputes over the ownership. Because when these types of things occur, there's usually documents filed associated with a home. So it's important to know when you are buying a house, if there's anything associated with that. Generally, it's required. A lot of times the lenders are going to require it, and it's part of just the process, at least in the United States. Without a title search, you often risk buying a home with problems that could cost thousands later. So that's why the lenders usually require them. And that's why we get title insurance too, and just in case there's a mistake in that examination of the title or something didn't pop up when it should have. Title search in short just helps you and helps insure but doesn't guarantee that you're buying the home. And it truly becomes yours free and clear without any other potential issues that need to be addressed later. I hope this was helpful, and thanks again for the great questions.
It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Christine, and thank you for giving us some insight with regards to tenant lease and homeowner purchasing tips. So guys, these are just a few examples of risks that often fly under the radar. If something doesn't feel right, whether you're renting or buying, don't wait. Reach out and get trusted legal advice. If you found this video helpful, please remember to give us a like, subscribe to our channel, and drop your questions in the comments. We're here to help protect your rights and help you make informed choices. Have a great day.